Hello, hello. I'm Zachary Hines, and this is what you missed at the Straz. Welcome. I'm Zachary Hines, and I am here again with LeeAnn Day Douglas. And yes, we're still talking about Pose.
Why not? I could talk about Pose forever and ever. I just wish we were at a restaurant with drinks talking about Pose instead of in quarantine.
I know. I mean, I feel I'm from New Jersey, so I feel like Electra's signature move could also be my signature move. But it's not fun when I'm here alone in my apartment in quarantine. That means I have to clean it up.
That's right, you're flipping your own table. Yeah, no good.
Exactly. I wanna flip other people's tables with 0 consequence.
That doesn't ever happen in real life. So yes, we're
Unless
talking about the last bit of Pose season 2.
and there is a lot going on.
So we move on to episode 8, which was Revelations, and this is the May December romance that I hinted to last time. So,
Yes. So
yeah.
I did not think it was gonna be Ricky. I thought it was gonna be Prey and Damon.
Oh no. So Ricky finds out from Chris, who is the guy he's been living with, and he's the guy he cheated on Damon with. And he ended up breaking up with Chris, but he gets a phone call from Chris saying he tested positive. So Ricky goes to Pray Tell, and Pray is like, "You've got to get tested." And he's like, "Again?" And he's like, "Yes, that's what being an adult is about. This is not the last time you're going to have to get tested. You're going to have to get tested again and again and again." And so he hadn't told anybody else. He didn't tell anybody else in the family. He only told Pray Tell. So Pray Tell went with him to get his results, and he was positive.
Mm. Ugh, that moment, he's like he, like, didn't even hear it at first, too. That was ugh.
Yeah, he just couldn't take it in. And so it was interesting because they had been hinting for at least an episode beforehand that Ricky kind of might have started having a thing for Pray Tell.
But yeah, Pose is so unsubtle.
No, they're not
They
subtle.
have, like, all these breadcrumbs that they, like, deliver to you. Like, even with the whole contract thing, like,
You
"Oh, I don't
didn't
need
get
a
a
contract." "No,
contract?
you didn't get a contract." And then, like, this time, I think, like, in episode 6, like, Prey says something at the ball, and, like, Ricky, like, gives him a look and, like, raises a glass to him, and you're like, "Huh."
Yeah, and he called him daddy in one of the episodes, and he's like,
Uh-huh.
I ain't your daddy. And but yeah, so they were hinting very loudly about this relationship that happened. So yeah, Ricky and Pray Tell end up getting together, and at first it seems like it's just going to be a fling, but as the season wears on, it seems like it's developing into more of a long-term actual relationship.
Which I kinda
And
like. I was kind of like, I don't know how I feel about this at first. Like, it kind of felt odd.
well, yeah, I mean, Pray Tell gets a lot of heat for it because even Electra gives him sass over it. She's like, "You are not supposed to get with anybody at the balls, the boys at the balls."
Mhm.
And it causes a rift between him and Blanca, and she's his best friend. And I mean, they end up like having this huge blowout and stop speaking. And and yeah, I mean, the other MCs at the ball are give him a little bit of heat over it at first, and then they're kind of like, you know what? If it makes you happy, then you do you. Um, but yeah, he gets a lot of flack for getting with Ricky.
Right. But I think it's what he needed. Like, I think they're really good for each other. And, I mean, a part of me at first was like, "Oh, well, Ricky's just very vulnerable right now. Like, is this" I was almost worried that, like, Prey was gonna get his heart broken. But I think it's a great opportunity because I think it's showing that Ricky is also, like, maturing and stepping up to
Giving him a little more depth. So
Mhm.
So
to be a
yeah.
man, to grow
Mhm.
up.
Yeah, yeah.
Like when he was like, Prey was like, you're just gonna break my heart, you're just gonna leave. And then he woke up the next morning and he made him breakfast and
It's so sweet. So sweet.
uh
And of course,
I
while all of
know.
this is happening, um, Damon like blows up when all of this is revealed, and he at dinner tells Blanca that Angel and Lil Poppy been doing cocaine, and Ricky is positive, and Prey's been sleeping with Ricky, and it just like there's this huge blow up, and Electra is there, and she's like, there is just too much drama in this house, and
I
yeah,
love that Lulu was like, "Oh, we should go," and Electra's like, "No, it's just getting good."
yeah, yeah. And so there's this huge rift that comes between Blanca and her children. Damon ends up getting a dance tour in Europe. And so he's leaving. Angel and Little Poppy move out because Angel's like, we know your rule is no drugs. You can't play favorites and let me stay. I need to go. And so all of her children move out. And she's not speaking to Pray Tell. And now Blanca is completely alone.
Right, from really having this full family life, they would have their Friday dinners and really it was because all of that entire blow up happened at the graduation party for Damon because Damon graduated from his dance program. There's a beautiful moment of when his teacher came and said goodbye to Blanca, and she was really just crediting. I liked that she had this whole monologue about legacy. That like you can. There are people that you meet that are just so focused on not on what they're gonna do or how much money they're gonna make. It's what they're gonna leave behind, like what their legacy is gonna be.
Hmm.
And for Blanca, her legacy is her family. Yeah, and that's why she's so driven to make sure that they can succeed. Um, and so it kind of was the end of Damon's storyline, and he was ready to kind of leave. Angel was acting a fool at that dinner, and and Blanca's not really believing Damon, um, who really is. I don't know why you would not believe Damon.
Right, right. But I mean, it's all in the delivery, right? If you get up and act like a little, I mean, seriously, you don't get up in the middle of a dinner and confront people like that.
Right, right,
You don't. And he's revealing Ricky's HIV status, which is a no no. You do not out people at
right.
all. You do not out people who are gay to other people, anybody. You don't out people at all. That's part of the culture. And when you do that, that is a no-no. So Ricky, Damon is pissed because now he's been exposed to HIV because of Ricky. So that's where all of this is coming from. But instead of doing this in a constructive, mature way, he outs Ricky's status to the entire family, outs the relationship of Prey and Ricky to the entire family, outs the drug use to the entire. It's like, no, you take Blanca aside and say, hey, there are things we need to talk about.
Mhm.
People are being, you know, uh, dishonest with you, and I think you should know about this. But you don't do that at dinner, right? I mean, come on.
It's not for it doesn't make a good dinner, but it makes great television.
Sure does. Sure does. But I mean, born in a barn, seriously. So,
And after all of that drama, Electra decides it's time for a girls' trip.
the girls need a vacation. So she's got this client who has more money than sense. And he's a Wall Street mogul, and he's got this beach home that he doesn't use. And, she's in the middle of beating him and kind of finds this out and says, hey, can we use your house? And so he's like, yeah, we can kind of make it a working weekend. So she takes him up there and is beating him in the garage at night, and during the day they're on the beach.
Right, he just likes to be alone.
He really just likes to
He
be
wants
alone. So she just locks him up. He's in like this leather outfit and he's got these blinders on and headphones on that block out noise. And he just wants to be alone with the feeling of no one's gonna find me. I could die here and nobody would find me for weeks. And that's what he gets off on. And she's like, hey, if I can take the girls on a free vacation to a nice beach house and that's all he wants, and I'm getting paid, why not?
Yes, I love it, and also the episode has one of my favorite lines from Elektra when they're going to the car and there was, like, a fire hydrant that was spewing water or whatever, and she's like, "Oh, why did I have to park on the only non-gentrified street?"
So yeah, that was a great episode, and Blanca actually meets a young doctor who is a lifeguard because Blanca and Angel go swimming, and Blanca ends up almost drowning, and the lifeguard saves her life, and he ends up being a doctor, and it's like the perfect little summer. It's like I was thinking of Greece because I was like, it's the perfect little summer fling because he knows all about her. She doesn't have to lie to him about who she is, and he still wants to be with her. And it's a very sweet little storyline, especially since she's been feeling really, really lonely at the house all by herself, and she's kind of at her wits end because she has nobody to take care of anymore.
Right. And that's, like, what we needed for her. I needed to see some love in her life, and I also love there's so many they talked about in that show that how, like, even if it doesn't become anything, you just needed that moment, you
Mhm.
know? And
Mhm.
sometimes you do. You have certain moments in your life that like Into the Woods, a moment in the woods, like, where
Yeah.
you know, you need a few moments that are special and
Yeah.
are only that and would almost be ruined if they were more.
And they wrap it up at the end because Electra, like you said, they are showing her softer side and showing her depth, and she's obviously been keeping a close eye on Blanca and the fact that Blanca is lonely, and she's at least noticed it. And at the end, when she's telling her client, hey, the weekend is up, it's time to go. She takes his blinders off, takes his headphones off, and says, you are choosing loneliness. Not everybody has that luxury. And she says it kindly, but she really kind of puts him in his place.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved that because she was like, "You're really lucky." And he's like, "Yeah, I have a lot of money." And she's like, "No, it's yeah, that like what you said, it's that you're choosing to be lonely, not everyone has a choice."
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was yeah, that was such a great Electra. She's had so many great moments in this,
Mm-hmm.
except when she almost didn't allow Blanca to come on the trip because she would wear a bathing suit.
I know, I know. Well, and okay, it wouldn't be right if I didn't mention before we move to the last episode that they go to the beach because obviously it's summertime. It is hot, hot, hot. They don't have air conditioning in their apartments. And Electra, the body in her closet is starting to decompose in the heat. And so
Oh.
it's starting to smell, even though they had put lye on it. So there's this scene where they have her hanging like 100 of those little pine cone air fresheners from the ceiling of the closet to try to mask the smell. And when Blanca comes over and they're all choosing bathing suits, they're kind of like, "What's that smell?" And she's like, "It's air freshener." And it was,
It's pine.
yes, it's pine. I found it hilarious. So,
And also the best read of the season is in this episode when
mhm,
this, basic little Barbie comes over and she's like, "I work in the city and you don't I know a man trying to be a woman when I see one or whatever, so real transphobic nonsense.
mhm.
And And Electra just goes in for the kill.
And this is in a really nice restaurant.
Right,
So
they're treating themselves. Yeah, she's treating her daughters to.
yeah, so they're in a really nice restaurant, and this woman approaches them and is very loud and obnoxious about outing them at the restaurant and just trying to get them to leave. And she is just as loud and obnoxious. And you listeners have to watch episode 9 so that you can see this. It was amazing.
I mean, it's such a good read that halfway through, she needed to lubricate
That's right.
with a glass that she takes a sip of water, and I love Lulu's like, "Lubricate, girl, lubricate." And then she finishes, and I love what she says, she's like, "And you are afraid because we had to fight for our right to be at this table, and that makes us better than you ever could be."
Mhm, mhm.
And that's what makes them afraid of them.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and then at the end when she's finished, they were like, "You didn't even do your signature move." She's like, "Oh, I totally forgot. Should I do it now? Should I flip the table?" They're like, "No, no, no, don't do it."
So we get to the last episode, and Blanca gets ill.
Right, we fast forward a year.
Yeah. She's still
It's
lonely. She's still alone.
Which really broke my heart because they played with my emotions, and I thought Dreamy Lifeguard was gonna be, because they have him, they're doing this whole like, "Oh, well, it's fine if it's just that because, it was such a beautiful, magical night."
And then he calls
Um,
her.
and he calls her, he left a message.
Yeah, and then they fast forward and he is nowhere to be found.
I know, I'm like, "What happened to Dreamy Lifeguard
I
Doctor?"
know. So yeah, so Blanca is still alone in the house. She's still not talking to Pretel, which is a long
She's
time to not be talking to your best friend.
Oh,
Um,
we also totally left out the fact that Blanca's nail salon got burnt to the
oh,
ground.
it did get burned to the ground. Yeah, and then Patty LaPone got arrested, which was fabulous.
Yes.
But yeah, so she's got pneumonia from HIV, and so she ends up in the hospital.
Yeah, this was devastating because I really thought this was the end for Blanc. I was like, "Are they really gonna do this to me?" Because, like, you can't take Blanca away from me.
They can't. She's the protagonist. They can't take
I
her
know this is
away.
her story, it's her
Yes,
story.
yes.
Ugh, I was, like, yelling that at the TV, I'm like, "No!"
No, no, I was not even worried. Nope, not worried at all.
I was worried because they
No.
were, like, Trey was over there, they were going through her will.
Well, now you're going too fast. So they end up making up, which was tear-inducing.
Mhm.
Because they bury the hatchet, and she's coughing and coughing and coughing, and it's just like a good thing that he showed up, and he ends up he's the one who takes her to the hospital. And so he takes her to the hospital, she's reading her will, they're going through all of that. It's really sad. She's like, he's like, I leave little Poppy, what was the name, something like, I don't remember the name. And he's like, what the hell is that? She's like, that was the dog I was going to get this summer. And he's like, you need to leave that boy something real. So, you can't just leave a dog you were going to get. So, so they're going through all that. But he basically says, I'm going to go through your like phone book, your personal little phone book, and we're going to have somebody with you all the time. You're not going to be here alone at all. And so the girls rally around her, and
Electra's there, someone's bringing in flowers, she's like, "Ugh, how dare you bring in those cheap flowers, they cause
those
disease."
bodega flowers, she says. Yeah, yeah, but
Yeah,
then she says, pray tell is like, I haven't seen any of y'all at the balls lately. Where have y'all
right.
been? And she's like, we don't want to go to the balls anymore because we are being judged by a panel of, what'd she say, judgmental homos? Is that what she said?
Something like that, basically that it was all
All
men.
men. It's all men judging the women, and we don't even have that many categories anymore because you introduced Vogue for the boys, you introduced this for the boys, that for the boys. It's all men all the time, and the women are just kind of pushed aside. So we don't even want to be there. There are no women
Mhm.
MCs. It's just a big men's club right now. And so they end up coming up with a way for the men to walk in the women's heels, literally. And so the new ballroom category is, oh, what is it?
Butch Queen,
Butch Queen,
first time in
walk in the ball,
drag.
first time in drag, or something like that. Yeah. And so Electra teaches Pray Tell and all of the boys how to be drag queens, basically.
Yes, Elektra giving walking in heel lessons, incredible.
It really was. It really was. And what she kept calling them when they were failing, I mean, she came up with something new every time, and Pray Tell was the worst. And I don't know how hard it must be for someone who is so good at walking in heels, Billy Porter, to fake like he's really bad at walking in heels.
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, he literally was dancing, doing, like, flips and cartwheels in heels and kinky boots 8 shows a week.
Mhm.
So he really had to be he earned his Emmy,
He
honey.
did. He did. He earned it. So yeah. So they do that, and then of course the most fabulous thing that happened was Blanca gets out of the hospital, but she's still really weak, and she's gonna walk a category. So she's in a wheelchair.
And Damon flew
And Damon
back.
flew back to see her. So kind of like all her family is kind of all
Cried
back
again. I
together
cried
again,
again.
I know. And so she's covered up in like this blanket and she's walking the lip sync category. And so they roll her in. This is the very end, folks. I know this is getting a little long. They roll her in to the ballroom floor and she is lip syncing Whitney Houston singing the Star Spangled Banner, which just by itself is fabulous. All they had to do was play Whitney Houston and they would have had me. So at this one point in the song, she throws off this like blanket. She's wearing this sequin red strappy dress, and just kills it. And Pray Tell gets all choked up, and he's like, "Nobody else needs to even walk because we know she won this category, tens across the board." And they nobody else walked; they just gave it to her. So it was fabulous. It was absolutely
It was a
fabulous.
beautiful moment. Yeah, and this I love this episode too because we actually got to see a lot more, like, we basically saw a full ball performance, where, like, throughout the season, you pretty much get, like, clips here and there,
Mhm.
but this, they showed pretty much every category. Like, they showed Face, they did, Vogue, so Damon got to Vogue, Elektra wins Mother of the Year, um, you get to see the new Candy, category, which was when Blanca lip synced to Star Spangled Banner. So you really got to see all of it in action, which I thought was really exciting.
Mhm.
And then finally they ended with the Butch Queen first timers doing their thing, and we had some very interesting performances, culminating in Billy Porter in his best Diana Ross drag. And
It's
he tried his best. He did a good effort. Pray came through. But I loved how it ended. Elektra said something that I think was really resonated with me, and it was like, if we all could walk in each other's in another person's heels, the world would be a better place.
Mhm.
Basically, if they did more of this,
Yeah.
you know, and that I think is a great lesson to take from that whole exercise.
Yeah.
And so then we're ending, and we were waiting on Prey. Blanca's outside, she's saying goodbye to Angel, who's going home, and we know that Angel and Poppy are clean, they're not doing, uh, drugs anymore, which is
No, but
good.
she lost her modeling gigs because of she got clocked basically.
Oh, oh,
Yeah,
oh my god, we totally forgot this was such a big part.
yeah,
Oh, I
yeah.
love this. I love this storyline. Yes, so Angel gets clocked by some awful queen. Ugh, don't be that gay. That's all I have to say. Don't be the gay that outs
You
your own
do
community.
not out people. What did I say earlier? You do not do that. So yes,
Horrible,
so he outs
horrible.
her to the agency basically, and all of the other clients, and so she loses her gigs. But little Poppy decides he's going to be her agent, and so he's the agent for all of the trans girls. He's
Yeah, so he signs up a lot of the girls at the balls, and he goes back to Miss Ford and says, "This is my plan, and right now I'm just a chump on the street, but if I have your backing, it will help legitimize me."
hmm
And she's like, "Okay, well, I'll give you a cubicle and a phone, and if you can book someone in 2 weeks, then, I'll sign on with you."
Yep,
And he ends up getting a gig in Berlin
yep.
for Angel, and, I love little
Yeah, and
Poppy.
he's like, there is this whole stack of jobs that the other girls don't want to do, and they're fine over in Europe. And Angel is like, but do they know about me? And he's like, yeah, baby girl, I told them all about you. They know. And she's like, I don't
Mhm.
have to hide anymore. And he's like, no, babe, you don't have to hide anymore. And so,
I love what he said about he's just like, "You know how I his MO is basically leading with the truth and letting the cards fall as they will," which I think is such a great perspective, just be honest and, see how people deal with that and kind of find your opportunity in that,
hmm so at the
'cause then
very
you're not beholden.
so at the very very end, Blanca's about to go home, and she sees these two young kids. Were they eating out of the garbage?
I don't know, they kind of were like I can't remember, but they were definitely clearly I
Indigent.
think they were. Yeah.
Yeah. And so she approaches them and basically takes them on as her new children.
Right, or I mean, we don't know for sure if they'll, like, officially become her children, but her and Prey take them she's like, "Are you hungry? You've been staying at the piers. Um, why don't you come with me? We'll
Get you
get you a
something to
meal."
eat. Yep, and that's how it ended.
Which I love because, her first family, her first era of children have all kind of graduated, they're all moving on with their lives, and, it makes sense that she would take, the next generation, and I'm really it makes me even more excited for next season, although I better see a legitimate love interest for Blanca.
We will see.
I feel like the lifeguard, while it might not be him coming back, I feel like that was a tease for the future, like, that they're gonna get her someone to I feel like that is the next step for Blanca and her storyline. That's I'm fighting for it, I'm rooting for it. One other thing that I'll say that this episode when I was reading about this episode, I read an interview from the creators, and, it was interesting because they were talking. It was a lot about Blanca going to the hospital and potentially, dying, and something the writers were talking about is having to while the audiences and the writers that love these characters, how could you not fall in love with Blanca and Pray Tell? Um, they're also the reality of what HIV and the AIDS crisis was in that time. It was very serious, and you could lose your life at any moment. And so balancing the reality of what that meant to have a diagnosis like that with, I think making it look like it's not a big deal is something that they struggle with, um, and bringing in the reality of it. So I think that they've done, uh, a really great job at educating people who maybe didn't grow up in that time period or just don't know much about it with
Mhm.
how, um, tragic that whole experience must have been and scary and, um, but also how resilient our community is.
Mhm. Mhm. And it's nice that for the most part that is in the rear view mirror.
Yeah, I mean, they now have I mean, now HIV is basically just a it's still, serious, but it's a chronic condition, it's manageable, and you can live a long, full life. Um, we've to think that this was 1990 and it's 2020 now, and we've made so much progress.
Mhm.
Uh,
Well, 30 years is a long time.
yeah,
That's
I
your
mean, people
entire
are
life.
now yeah, that's my entire life, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So since which is insane to think that, that amount of progress, starting with where it was the world at large did not care. Um, and so to finally they talked about, I guess, their, uh, plan is that the show will end in 1996 when, the first, uh, cocktail is,
Mm.
um, introduced in treating, um, and actually allowing, regress fighting back, because basically AZT just slows the progression. Now medicine can bring someone with HIV to undetectable levels where they
Mhm.
can't even pass it on.
Right.
Um, so yeah, that was quite a groundbreaking moment. But there's still a lot. We're only in 1991, so there's a lot of, uh, material to cover.
So, what are we watching next time?
Yes, we're gonna be watching the Lincoln Center revival of The King and I with my beloved Kelly O'Hara. She's one of my favorite Broadway performers.
Really?
Hop on there, watch along, and we'll catch you next time.